So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Kids to Adults, venue to virtual, or is it virtual to venue? I can't really remember. My name is Chris Wood, and I head up Cosmopolitan Care, or as the cool kids call it, Cosmo Care. So rather than bore everybody with a huge death by PowerPoint presentation, I thought it would be bring the event its very own version of Netflix and chill by way of something in conversation. And today I'm joined by Hardeep Rai from the Kaleidoscope group of companies. So we will discuss the adults bit on the Kids to Adults, because that's kind of where we sit. And we want to look at, certainly with Cosmopolitan Care, it's those personal assistants and carers that young adults need as they travel through education. And with Hardeep, it's that moment when you leave school or further education and start to look in the workplace by way of a job or even entrepreneurship. So I'm going to hand straight over to Hardeep to introduce himself. He's a very good friend, and he's the co-founder and CEO of the Kaleidoscope Group. So Hardeep, would you like to tell me a little bit more about Kaleidoscope and its aspirations?
Thank you, Chris. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this morning. It's great to be here and to be a part of this exhibition. So I started, you said that we were great friends, by the way. So we've been friends for a good 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And actually, funnily enough, one of the first times I met you was at our event, which was around disabled entrepreneurship, wasn't it? I think back in 2015.
Event. Absolutely.
Yeah, that still, for me, even now, even till today, it still really resonates. So, so what Kaleidoscope is all about, it's all about helping people with disabilities to find purpose in their lives through their careers. That's what the group is all about. And Kaleidoscope Investments is involved in helping people with disabilities to become successful entrepreneurs by helping to support them on that journey. You know, if they've got great ideas, we'd want to, you know, help them to evolve those ideas, mentor them with those ideas, invest in them, and then help them to build their companies over a period of time. So that's what Kaleidoscope Investments is all about. And Kaleidoscope Recruitment is all about helping people with disabilities to find their perfect job role, you know, to get that career path that they really desire. And one of the things that I've learned over these 5 years is that a lot of people with disabilities that come to us that are looking for employment often say they're looking for a certain type of role because that's what they think they're going to find a job with. But that doesn't actually mean that that's what they really want to do, right? What they want to do might be something totally different, but they don't feel that anyone's going to give them the opportunity to do what they really want to do. So they go with what they think they're going to get a job with. And I think one of the greatest things that I think is really important in life is finding purpose, is knowing why you wake up each morning, what your life is all about, where you're heading. And I think that for those people with disabilities that do really want to do something special with their lives, we want to help them. We want to mentor them. We want to provide them with training services. We want to provide them with self-confidence workshops, self-awareness workshops. And by the way, all at no cost, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, people with disabilities, they deserve that opportunity that they haven't had for a very, very long time. And as you well know, the reason I got into Kaleidoscope in the first place is because of my son, Ishin. You know, I was kind of a conventional city boy chasing money up until the age of 36 when Ishin was born. And when I realized that my money wasn't able to reverse his brain damage, which was severe, it made me really question life, my purpose, my direction. Of course it does. And you'll know that as well, Chris.
Yeah,
I mean, we're both dads, right? It kind of everything falls apart, doesn't it?
We both sing off the same AstraZeneca lab report, don't we? Really, we know exactly what needs to be done, and I see that again with my own son and daughter, who are both wheelchair users and have a disability. My son now going through university, and on the other side, and I see a lot of his friends and other people. I suppose, like everybody really that's going through further education, you've got your degree under your arm. Well, now what do I do? Now the challenge for someone with a disability has always been harder, and it's still harder in that workplace. And I think one of the toughest things, and we were discussing this just before the call with someone I'm working with at the moment, and I wanted to have the confidence, and she tells me I haven't got the confidence, Chris. I've got a first in, web design, and I haven't got the confidence, and she's already been turned down. Well, you've got a workshop that does that, and they need it, and they really need that support to get that degree and going, right, now what shall I do? And not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, do they, Hardy?
No, they don't. I mean, I think we've met over the last 5 years. I was doing this with Haley recently, like how many people have we actually met? And we've met over 1,100 people with disabilities over the last 5 years. And increasingly, we're meeting people that actually don't want to be entrepreneurs. Like you just said, they want employment, they want jobs. And I think they see the current COVID climate, unfortunately, is very difficult to find jobs, but they're still keen to, because there's a fear around entrepreneurship a lot of the time. And people, they don't always want to be entrepreneurs. So you're right, employment is a big thing right now.
When going through university, there is this something we do is trying to get those PAs and those carers to support them. And I set up Cosmopolitan Care because essentially, as a parent, and I've been there and done it, there's a lot of care companies out there, and I kind of break it down into two types. There's those that need some elderly care, where it's generally handled by the bigger companies, but if we get down to young adults, they don't want Tom, Dick or Harry. They would like somebody they get on with. It's that fine line between being support and companionship. That's can be hard to find. And, the reality is, as Cosmopolitan Care is, sometimes as dad or mum, you're going to have to drop in every now and again. And I think that's not spoken about enough. And I found myself doing interviews, and all the people that do these are management companies, and we're one of those. And I think that has to be transparent, as that might happen. And many parents want to do that anyway. But as we move through university, and I can see some of these kids coming out, are you talking to the universities at all, Hardeep, in terms of what they're doing?
So last year, we started something as a bit of a pilot, actually. We spoke to UEL, a university, and in London, and we did a presentation for students, and there were 90 students that actually registered, all disabled, to attend. And we had a good, 40 plus that actually attended the session. And it was all about life after university, right? What are the options?
Yeah.
How can Kaleidoscope help you? And we were presenting two things. First of all, obviously, we spoke about life being an entrepreneur and how Kaleidoscope can help you to become an entrepreneur. And that was very good for a lot of these guys because, given what I said earlier, in their minds, especially in the current climate, they're not going to find a job. And so some of them do want to start businesses, right? So, we were coaching them through how we can help them and what we can do. And then we were also talking, I was with Sam, and we were also talking about employment, right? And actually, how can we then help you to find a job? And I think the way that we have started to work as Kaleidoscope is, instead of just going to an employer and saying, what job do you have? Who can we find for that job? We're doing it the other way around now. We're actually saying to the disabled individual, what do you want? What's your perfect job role? What salary would you like to earn? What sector would you like to be in? What geographic region would you like to work in, right? And then we're actually proactively going out to find them employers. And I learned this, Chris, from my James Caan days, actually, when I had the great opportunity to work with him. There were so many people that would come off the street with their CVs and be really entrepreneurial in their approach for looking for work. And it worked really well. I employed 2 people myself from that, right? Just from people that, and quite often when you're a company, you don't always advertise roles that you're seeking. And if somebody suddenly comes along at the right time in the right place, or is represented by the right company, then that's very powerful. And I think we've built up and continue to build up in the recruitment space a brand that is like, if an employer is going to talk to us, then they know they're going to get a person with a disability that has been through a bit of a training program, and that person is ready, is sort of the best that they can be. So we talk about that at the session. And then the other thing Sam talks about is how to present yourself in the best way possible. On social media now, on LinkedIn now, there's so many opportunities to present yourself in a good way, right? And to be succinct.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you do that? And by the way, this is good for all of us. It's not just for university students. We can all learn from things like this. So we talk about that as well. So it's all about self-branding and getting their best selves out there to give them the best chance of finding, whether it's employment or entrepreneurship. So we started that with UEL, and then we did another 7 universities throughout the back end of last year. And we did a virtual careers fair as well. So I think people are adapting to this COVID climate about doing things in the way that we're doing them now, Chris.
I think the universities are coming more on board with this aspiration to find this demographic work and support as well, and not just kind of leaving them in the lurch. And some universities are better at that. And we've asked a lot of people to write about their time at university, and generally they've always been good. But there are 1 or 2 where they're privately told me, Chris, this was the best of it, but I don't really want to hear the worst. That's not a bad thing. It's just that it's got better, and sometimes there are 2 or 3 years ago, and the university might have tightened the ship up now. So you just never know. But one of the things.
Oh, sorry, Chris. I was just going to say, on the point of universities, one thing that's interesting to note, to your point just now, is that out of all the universities that we approached, where we offered this conversation, there wasn't anybody that said no.
No, interesting.
So universities are really thinking, I think they are really thinking, to your point, about what more can they do for disabled students, and where's the opportunity. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I do think they need to learn as well. They are learning as they go along.
Definitely. I think this is a huge learning curve for them. And frankly, I mean, I don't want to use a word that's too strong, but they'd probably be complacent if they weren't giving an opportunity to companies like ours that were offering free services for students, right? I mean, why would you not want to give them the opportunity to do that? But no, I think they are learning. I think they are learning. And I think there's a lot about disability that they haven't known before. But in the last 2-3 years, there's disability units, there's mental health units, there's counselors that are there for people with disabilities, there are sort of accessible arms to different types of unions, or they're doing more. They are definitely doing more for disability, as far as I'm told from people that I know are in university.
And I'm hearing that and seeing them. I think the dynamic I would like to see change is that when I go if I'm just going to university now with my son, or even college, I would actually like to be meeting somebody with a disability who, as immediately as I see them, I go, oh, they're going to get this. I don't have to explain it too much. And that more diverse representation inside the universities itself. But I'm sure that will come, and you must see that in companies as well.
I do, and there's one particular university. It's a very big university, so I won't mention their name, but they have been speaking to us about exactly the point that you just made.
Yeah.
Right. They have a diversity-minded agenda now in terms of getting more people that are employed by the university to be from diverse backgrounds. And that wasn't just disability, by the way. It was spread across the whole diversity.
So it was a broad spectrum, which is what it needs, from autism to non-verbal and so on and so forth. What do you think? I mean, we're here on a Kids2Adultz exhibition, and there'll be some people watching this with kids. And what's from my point of view, I would urge anybody to where they can is to push their children into further education. And here sits a bloke who just about went to college, forget university. I didn't do that, but I did go back to college later in life to learn about accounts, because I just needed to understand a P&L and a balance sheet. But I know these days it's almost a rite of passage, isn't it? And the social life that goes with that. But nevertheless, with children, can you always have aspirations to do that? And that's not for everybody. We must realize that. But secondly, is that when you talk to the parents with kids now, do they want to do this? So could they go straight from, say, 17, 18 into the workplace?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think that there are lots of schemes right now that the government have even put into place, Kickstarter being one of them, that is encouraging apprentices programs, or encouraging children or young adults that may not want to go into further education to try and find employment. And I know I don't want to keep mentioning the COVID word, Chris, but and I know that there's a lot of people out there at the moment that will be thinking there's hardly any opportunities, there isn't very much going on. But you know what we've seen, Chris? Actually, there are a lot of opportunities. There are, right? You just have to know what sector to look into. The health sector is going crazy at the moment. Really? The technology sector, online retail, deliveries, logistics. There are people that are going for interviews on a Tuesday and getting a job on a Wednesday, literally, right? So I don't want people and having this entrepreneurial mindset. I don't want people to think that it's all doom and gloom out there, because there are opportunities. And I think, with children that have different types of special needs, and that's the thing that we've got to really understand, is we've got to know what's best for our children, right? We've got to. I mean, look, you have two phenomenal kids, Chris. Yeah. What you've done with each of them as a parent, as a father, how you've driven them, how you've allowed them to go, like Taylor in her sort of entrepreneurial direction, and Geordie with his sort of university. You've given them that free rein, but you've been there to steer them at the same time, right? And I think as a parent, now with Ishan, it's very different, because Ishan at the age of 14 is totally nonverbal. There's a lot of things, because he's unable to communicate, we don't really know what's going on in his head yet. Okay, so if I put Ishan at the sort of the one end of the spectrum for the moment, but then there's a lot of other children that are able to communicate, are able to articulate, and it's a case of us thinking as parents, what can we do for them that's going to motivate and inspire them, right? It has to. It's got to. What we've got to figure out is what drives our children. What really drives our children. Here's a really beautiful example. There's a lady in Ireland that we met about 4 or 5 months ago. She's got a beautiful, beautiful boy, and he's got autism. Okay, and he's about 31 years old, something like that. And she's been trying to help him to find employment for a very, very long time, Chris, right? It's taken a long time. And actually, when we were talking to him, we suddenly found, I mean, she knew this already, obviously. He loves nature. He loves drawing pictures of leaves. He loves being around animals. He loves being in the outdoors. So we were trying to find him sort of a role in a horse racing stable, in a garden center, or something that was outdoors, something that was nature related, because that's what his passion was, right? Now, there's a lot of people that wouldn't value something like that as a parent. Where's that going to go? What's it going to get you? But that's what inspires the child, right? And we've got to think about doing what really inspires the child, and finding their driver and finding their motivation. And as you and I have had to do, right, as parents, we've had to change our benchmarks, right? In the world of non-disabled children, right? And this happened even with me before we knew Ishan was going to be disabled. Is what's the best school? What's the best university? What's the best catchment area to live in, etc., etc., etc. My kid's going to get 9 A stars, blah blah blah. Today I'm happy when Ishan has a good day and he smiles. That's enough for me. Right. So I think, well, us as parents, we have to really listen to our children, and we have to also, I would really say, find their hidden, and I highlight hidden, talents. Okay, because just because they're sitting down watching TV, or just because they're sitting down in front of a computer game, right, that doesn't mean they're not astutely intelligent, or that there's not something that's processing in their minds, right? It's a question of figuring out what that is, and then actually creating a pathway to enabling that to happen. And I think that's what I like to pride Kaleidoscope on, is trying. The first thing I want to say is you don't always succeed, but it's definitely trying to find that unique talent, that unique capability that child has, or that young adult has, and then steering that in that direction. And the other thing that I think is really important is parent groups. Okay, like you and I often have chats as two dads, right? Exactly. And I think that's really, really powerful, because being a parent of a child with disability is actually a very lonely place, right? And it's only in the last few years that I've started to join WhatsApp groups or different social media groups where they are our parents. We can share our
social media is very powerful now as well, very powerful,
incredible. And you get some good ideas, don't you, from other people?
Absolutely. And the parent power, that's what I want Cosmopolitan Care to be. I want it to be parents to come and join me and say, okay, let's direction, because I'm 60 next year. And I just want the best foundation I can have in terms of support and care for both my children. And it's nearly there with the companies that are out there, but not quite. And I always feel if we can have this, and it's almost totally user-led, and that whether you have a disability or a parent, we've all got experience of this, and so that it can go down the generations, that we build something which is everybody can support each other, and we all get something out of it as well. Let's treat it as a business, and so therefore we can just have that. I'm trying to think of the words now. It's far too early in the morning to think of words, and that reminds me why I'm 60. But just something which is can go down the generations, and also bring some employment into the very people that we're trying to help. The universities were interesting. I had a case where Geordie started university. He had aspirations to do something. And this goes back to your point. We listened to the university. We listened to the tutors, and they said, Geordie, great idea. But the reality is some of those modules you will not be able to do. But if you go this way, you can do these modules. And we think you're capable. And when they said it as a parent, I knew Geordie's history. I thought, and this is about his writing and what he can do and he went into journalism, and he's never looked back. And they were bang on the money, absolutely bang on the money, So listen to them, and they I won't say they're always right, but they certainly were in Geordie's case.
That's really good to know, and I'm delighted because that's a critical moment in your life and Geordie's life, where if that university hadn't said that and had said something else or something that was discouraging, that could have been really damaging, right, to Geordie and to you. So I'm really glad they did that. Yeah. But I just wanted to pick up on a point that you made previously. First of all, you don't look 60; you look more like 50. So
darling,
you're doing very well on your age, Chris. And the second point that I wanted to make about what you're doing, Chris, in terms of Cosmo Care, is that my son has been in care now for coming up to 5 years, right? So he was in a care home previously, and he's in a care home now. And sadly, the care home that he was in previously actually closed down for lots of different reasons. And for me, as a parent, care is critical, because actually a lot of us don't want our children to be in care, but we know that for them, that is actually what's best. Okay?
Definitely.
And I've always dreamed of having a parent-led care home, right? That's one of my ambitions that I want to do on the Kaleidoscope one day.
Yeah.
But the critical point I use here is parent-led, right? And what I think is fantastic about what you're doing is you are a parent-led organization, first and foremost. Definitely. You're not just a regular agency that's trying to do, the job that a lot of these care agencies, very sadly, are doing really poorly. Okay, and I don't want to be too disparaging, but there are many, many, many stories of care home agencies that I hear, and I've been hearing over the last 5 years, and witnessing with my own eyes in terms of things that are not going right, just pure money-making schemes, paying the carer the minimum and charging the care home the maximum. And so I think what you're doing as a parent is fantastic, because you are living and breathing it every single day. You've had carers for your children over the last God knows how many years, and you've witnessed a lot of things. You're brought in because you have 2 children. You have a unique viewpoint. So I actually think with Cosmo Care, I think this is a very powerful story behind it. And I really think that people need to pay heed to the fact that you are first and foremost a parent. It's not that you're an entrepreneur. You're actually doing this because you found a need in the marketplace, and you're actually grabbing the bull by the horns and doing something about it. So a lot of genuine, and I know this is an interview about general stuff, but actually a lot of credibility to you, Chris, for feeling so emotionally, having that sort of desire to do something and actually doing it. So that's a great.
The other thing you touched on there was, paying the carers less and trying to get the profit.
Yes.
And I often, as I move along, for the last 10 months, we've been adoring our NHS and our carers and clapping for them. Have they got any more money? No, not really. But if you could build these companies up, and everybody I talk to that, uses PAs or using carers, love to pay them more. Yeah, I really would love to pay them more, but of course that's always could be difficult. But if you can find that balance where, you know, a care home is profitable and the loyal staff can perhaps grab a bit of that, you know, just some sort of mechanism to do that, and I feel the same way, then that's got to be good for everybody. And you can keep there's nothing worse in HR than having to keep re-employ people. I would rather keep the good ones and pay them well. That's always how I've kind of looked at anything like that. We're coming towards the end of our conversation, Hardeep, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't even started yet.
Oh no, absolutely. Well, we've got 25 minutes, and I think we've overstepped that. But maybe the wizards at Kids2Adultz are going, this is quite good. Let's have a few more minutes. But I think before we go, I mean, first of all, thank you, Hardy. But if you could just remind everybody where they can find Kaleidoscope and so on and so forth.
Sure. So our website is www.kaleidoscope.group. So that's it, www.kaleidoscope.group. And if you were to Google Kaleidoscope Investments as well, then you'll find us very easily online.
Yeah, and same with Cosmopolitan Care. Just type that in somewhere, and my name, Chris Wood. We generally are around there, and you can contact us either way. And you know, if we'd love to talk to you and be of help. And that's what we are both doing, and many others around us as well. It's not just us two. There's lots of other great people, and I know there's some work being done in the Lords at the moment regarding. And I'm tapping this on the end where I shouldn't have done, but I spoke to Jane Campbell, Baroness Jane Campbell, and they're doing something on the abuse bill to bring in protection for disabled people on terms of the carers. So yeah, that would be really welcome. It's a long way off in government. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Hardy, thank you very much. And for everybody watching, I hope that's been of some help. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Chris, for having me.